Hi, my name is Stephanie Jakes and I work with the Oxfordshire CAMHS Neurodevelopmental Conditions Pathway, and today I've been asked to speak to you about aggression. The aims of today's session is basically gain a clearer understanding what aggression is, to be able to understand what aggression is trying to communicate, and then think together about strategies in supporting us to reduce the aggressive behaviour that is currently being displayed. So what is aggression? Aggression can be anything that you find challenging, intimidating, and it puts you under threat and you feel like you're at risk. It could be someone hitting you or kicking you or swearing at you or getting into your personal space and starting to shout and spit at you. It could be punching, it could be pinching. It is literally anything that makes you feel intimidated or you're under threat or is challenging. So sometimes when aggressive behaviours are displayed towards you, especially from your child, it can be overwhelming. And some of these parents who I've supported in the past have shared different thought patterns they've had about their own child. For example, sometimes when the aggressive behaviour is displayed, like you got hit or punched again, some parents sometimes feel like, why do you always do it at me? I'm just trying to help you. Or why is it always me getting hurt? Nobody else. And even though I'm the number one cheerleader in your life, I just don't know what you want me to do anymore because anything I try leads to aggressive behaviour. This is too hard work, it's exhausting. And sometimes this leads to you feeling isolated from others because you feel like you can't take your child out because of your fear of aggression being displayed to a member of the public or to ruin another family friend, and you feel more and more isolated, and sometimes it's easy to blame your child. And I think what I want you to do is take time out. What other networks can you be connected to that you can be part of this journey with another family who's going through the similar concerns as you are? And I always speak to parents, and parents always share to me that actually one of the most powerful support mechanisms out there is basically the support from other parents who understand what it's like to live with a child who does display aggressive behaviours. So sometimes when we have this narrative within our mind, we need to start thinking about how can we externalize that to our child. So for example, I love Coca-Cola. It's yummy, it's scrumptious, it's delicious, it's gorgeous. And I look forward to having it because it gives me more an energy boost, it gives me happiness and joy. But if something got added to my bottle of Coca-Cola like a mental, it becomes this it explodes and it becomes this whole mess. And I look at that Coca-Cola and say, I really dislike you at the moment. I hate you because actually I got now spend an hour in cleaning up this sticky, horrible mess. And for that period of time, I'm like, I don't like Coca-Cola. However, I need to remember and remind myself that actually I do love my Coca-Cola, but it's just something got added to it that just changed it. It's not my Coca-Cola that lost its taste in it. It was everything that got added to it that made the explosion happen. So just think about that and how we can apply it to our child. So our child is laughing, gorgeous, smart, kind, caring, inquisitive, and these are all traits that we love about our child. And what I would like you to do and encourage you in your activity book is really take some time out to really think about your child's strengths. But things get added to their environment. So think about the Coke, the mentors being added to the Coke. So it could be your child's mentors could be and the school bus turning up late, or there was a lot of supply teachers in school today, or they were off timetables, or it was just too noisy, or they came home and the iPad wasn't charged, or they couldn't access their food because they were so hungry. And actually, all their mentals getting added to them throughout the day leads to their own busy bottle exploding. And that's when you see the aggressive behaviours because there's a lot of mentors being added to them and they're just feeling overwhelmed and tired, and hence why you see the aggressive behaviours. So sometimes we need to take a step back and really think about what is this aggressive behaviour trying to communicate. Is it communicating, I'm just feeling overwhelmed, there's just too much things happening to me today, or I just need some help but I just don't know how to ask for it, I just don't understand what's being expected of me, and I'm just pushing everyone away because I'm just confused, it's just too loud, I can't cope with it anymore, or I need longer doing this activity, or this activity is just too difficult. See, when we think about the question, rather than saying, oh, they're just doing it to hurt me or to annoy me, but we start thinking about actually it's trying to communicate needs, because we know children with suspected neurodiversity, they find it hard to process what's happening in their bodies, they find it hard to communicate, and sometimes the only form of communication they've got is through their challenging behaviours, because they're pushing everyone away, saying, I just can't cope anymore. So with this in mind, we need to really think about how all behaviour is a form of communication. Therefore, we need to take time out to really understand what is the aggression trying to communicate to us. And we do this, firstly, by documenting behavioural episodes on an antecedent behaviour consequence chart, so ABCs for short. So in the first column, the antecedent is basically what's happened just before the behaviour concerns that yeah. So for example, did you give them instructions in the was they in the room by themselves, or was someone talking to them? It could be anything. And just look at that picture. So they got a hole in their bow, and that could just be because they went over a hard rock and he scraped the bow, it led to the hole. And then think about the setting things, which is anything that builds up throughout the child's day or week that increases the likelihood of the behaviour occurring. So for example, are they hungry? Was there off timetable within school today? Was there supply teachers all week? Is the child tired or feeling sick? So for example, taking the boat as an example is if the boat wasn't well maintained, like it wasn't varnished and it was stored in a wet place, it leads to wood rot. So when they do go over that sharp stone or sharp rock, it increases the likelihood of that hole occurring within the boat. The next part of your ABCs is the behaviours. So that's basically a description of any behaviours that you observed of her. So it could be hitting, crying, kicking, shouting, swearing, punching, pushing, or lying on the floor saying, I'm not going to get up. And just think about it, in that moment of time when them behaviours are being displayed, it could be them in their water trying to shout for help, and then you do anything in that water when you're drowning, you'll kick and you'll flap and you'll push people away, because at that moment you just need help, and that help looks so different for each of our child. When you do the ABCs with the behaviours, try and avoid using label words such as anxiety, violent, meltdown, as the definition of these words varies between different peoples. So, for example, you could say, my child was aggressive under the behaviour section of the ABCs, but to me, aggression could be just shouting and punching, but your meaning of aggression could be the kicking, the hitting, and the swearing. So again, really just record exactly what you see. Avoid using any label words to stop the ambiguity of your ABCs. The next part of your ABCs is the consequence section. That's basically literally anything that happened just after the behaviour of concern. For example, did a parent sit next to the child? Did they have extra time doing an activity? Do they no longer follow through with the request? It could be anything. And just think of that boy drowning. It could be you just giving them a lifeline like that ring that helps them to swim back to safety. So it could be anything that happens in the moment after the behaviours that were displayed. So examples of ABCs I've quickly written down is it could be antecedent, telling my child to come off the computer. Throw items, behaviours could be throwing items, screaming and shouting, and the consequences could be stayed on the computer for longer. Another example could be parents asked the child to hurry up, getting ready, hitting and kicking and shouting occurred, and the child was late for school. So once you've done your ABCs and you feel like I've got quite a lot of different examples of different episodes of challenging behaviours, then we take time out and look through your ABCs and start analysing. And we try and do that by identifying the function of the behaviour. And function is just a posh way of saying, what is the behaviour trying to communicate? So basically, what is the aggression trying to communicate to us? So there are four functions of behaviour, and think of the word seat. So S is for sensory. So the behaviour itself brings enjoyment. For example, if I had a nut by, it doesn't matter where I am, what activity I'm doing, or who I'm talking with, I will be scratching away. because the behaviour is relieving that irritation. So again, there's no change to the environment. Anything could be happening, but I will still be scratching my arm. Then E for seat is escape and avoid, and that's basically the person trying to leave an activity or refuse to engage in the activity in the first instance. So for example, it could be if I was in the shop and aggression was displayed and I ran out, it means that I'm escaping that situation. If I didn't want to do it, if I wanted to avoid it, I would be like, you're not getting me into that shop. I'm not leaving the home because I really don't want to go shopping. So I'm avoiding the situation. So E for C is escape and avoid. Then A for C is attention. It's just trying to gain a reaction from anyone. And it could be negative attention, positive attention. So negative being shouting, and a positive could be a cuddle or just sitting next to them. It could be a short, sharp burst of attention to like a 2 hour I have to sit next to them and talk. So attention is just basically trying to gain a reaction from others, but it could be specific type of attention that's needed. Then T for C is access to tangibles. So it's basically gaining access to any items. For example, longer time on the iPad or gaining sweets or toys. It could be anything that the child wants to have access to. So that is your four functions of behaviours. So think about it. S is for sensory, E is for escape and avoid, A is for attention, and T is for tangibles. So when you're identifying your full function, your ABCs, you basically read through them. So antecedent is telling my child to come off the computer, behaviour is throwing items, screaming and shouting, and consequence is staying on the computer. And the function of that behaviour is access to tangibles because they had longer on the computer. Another example is the parents ask the child to hurry up getting ready, hitting and kicking and shouting occurred, late for school, so the possible function could be escape and avoid. That child was delaying going to school. Another example is gave my child an instruction to do homework, swearing, getting very loud, shouting and hitting occurred, followed through with the instruction only if mum was present. So the function of that behaviour could be attention, wanting mum's attention by getting them to sit next to them. Another one could be on the iPad, pinching skin, continues with no comments from others and no extra time on the iPad given. The function could be sensory as there was no change to the environment. Sometimes people say there's multiple functions and that's okay. So for example, this example, giving him an instruction to do homework, swearing, getting very loud, shouting and hitting, and the consequence being followed through with instruction only if mum was present, you could argue saying that could be an escape and avoid because they're delaying doing their work. So jot it down, it could be multiple functions, but what I would then ask you to do is choose the most likelihood. So you may see that occurring a couple of times and say, well, hang on a minute, it's always mum's attention, doesn't matter how easy the work or not. That child just wanted mum to sit next to them. Then we know it's more than likely to be attention. But again, it can be multiple functions to explain one behavioural episode. Okay? So now we've thought about ABCs and we've identified the functions of behaviours, we now need to think about the strategy and building up the strategy to increase the likelihood of success. The first thing we want to do is think of an alternative desirable behaviour that gets the child's needs met for the young person. So for example, if the child was showing aggressive behaviours in the forms of hitting, kicking to stay longer on the iPad, the alternative behaviour we want to see of is verbally requesting more time on the iPad. And firstly, once you've done that and you've tried to avoid what you don't want the child to do and start thinking about what you want the child to do. So another example is rather than saying stop running around the swimming pool, you may tell the child walk around the swimming pool. So you're telling them what you want them to do rather than what you don't want them to do. Once you've done that, you kind of make the targets to earn the rewards achievable and to build up success. So for example, the iPad example, it is okay, we want to overly reduce the challenging behaviour, so we want them to ask for a longer time on the iPad. So to start off with, you may say any verbal communication is good enough, even they swear at it, that is better than the hitting and kicking, and we'll give them longer on the iPad. and you build it up. So the next step after that's been successful is saying, okay, you requested, but without using any swear words. Then you build it out by shaping it to make it a little bit more desirable, and then you can build it out to say, not every time you ask for longer, you'll get more time. So can you see how you build it up gradually? So you don't expect your child to go from nothing to everything within 1 second, but over periods of times and various targets you're building up, you get the behaviour you want to see more of. When you're thinking of a target, you also need to think about what rewards you're going to give to your young person to help them to be motivated. If the reward is not motivated, please do change the reward. So, for example, if I've never had a cheeseburger for the last month, then yeah, you can say, if you ask nicely to have extra time on the iPad, you get given the iPad, and if it's super nice asking, you get a cheeseburger. I may be more motivated to ask super nicely because I'm like, I really, really want this cheeseburger and it's delicious. However, if I've had the cheeseburger every single day for the last week, I may not be motivated. So therefore, I'm like, well, actually, I'm just going to have longer time on the iPad because I'm not motivated by that cheeseburger anymore. So you need to keep on changing the rewards. Um, Also, with the rewards, going back to my previous point made, is that if they have access to the rewards outside doing that target, so for example, if I had access to my cheeseburgers all of the time, whether I put on my shoes to brushing my teeth to doing my homework, then I may say, actually, I'm not that motivated by getting a cheeseburger because this target is a lot harder than the others. So if I just concentrate on getting my cheeseburgers for putting my shoes on, then actually I don't need to get my cheeseburger for doing something harder. So again, try and keep rewards isolated to a particular target you want. If the young person achieves the reward, then really try not to take it away from them, because so many times the child has worked so hard to earn their rewards, and then one little slip out later on that's outside what you're trying to work on leads to their rewards being taken away. And like me, I'd be like, what's the point of trying? Because every time I try, I just have to have one slip up and no longer I get my reward. So again, if your child earns their reward, you need to respect it and follow through with it, regardless of any challenging behaviours that occur within the future. And just remember, any strategy can take around 2 weeks to see any success. Some people say, actually, I saw it within the first few days and I saw a huge dip, but I tweaked the rewards, kept my boundaries firm, and actually things have been a lot better and it's now fully successful. Other parents have said that actually it's taken them a few weeks of keeping going on it about it because actually you're teaching them a different skills that they've never had to do. So that will may take longer than 2 weeks. So again, the average is about 2 weeks, but it may take longer or it may take a little bit quicker. So another strategy that I keep on talking about is communication. It's important your child understand what's being requested of them and what is the expectations, because there's so many times that you feel like actually they've been told all of this and yet they haven't done this. But sometimes the issue of why strategies are not successful is because the child hasn't understood them, because it hasn't been communicated in the way they could understand it. So, for example, you may have to think about your communication style with your child. Do we need to use objects? So, for example, do I need to pass over them the toothbrush? Do I need to show them photos or pictures of their toothbrush to get them to brush their teeth? Do I need to write it all down for them and give it to them on what they need to do? Do I need to do gestures? So when I'm talking to them, I'm just showing them how to brush their teeth so they know, okay, mum wants me to brush my teeth. And sometimes the gestures really help because they are able to pick up actually what is being expected of them without trying to process all the verbal words. And also you can use technology. So some children find it extremely beneficial to use text messages, especially if you're older. And other children have found it really beneficial with Alexa. They can set their own timer, and then when it goes off, it's like, it's time to brush your teeth. And it helps them to know what's being expected. As well as helping your child to understand, this is just a quick guide on how to initiate conversation to get them to do something. So firstly, go into the room they are and say their name and pause until they acknowledge you. And this acknowledgement looks different for each child. Some children will struggle with eye contact, so they may look away from the device but not directly at you, but they could be listening. Some children, their way of initiating saying I'm listening is through eye contact. So again, understand how your child acknowledges your communication with them. To be able to get their attention, if they're not doing that, you may need to just give them a tap on the shoulder, as that will help them to be like, oh, something's happening, and get them out being so engrossed in the activity they are currently undertaking. And then once they've got your attention, give them one instruction at a time. Try and avoid using more than 7 words, because the more words you do, the harder it's going to be for your child to process. So for example, if I said to my child, oh yeah, can you go upstairs to brush your teeth, but before you do this, get changed into pajamas and pull your dirty clothes in the washing basket. That's a lot of different instructions to process, as well as the order you have to do it in. So again, give them one instruction at a time and be quite concise and precise with it. So for example, just say brush your teeth, try and take away any additional language. Just remember, even though you said you've given them one instruction of brushing your teeth, that can require multiple steps within one instruction. So for example, for brushing your teeth, it's like, I need to stop my activity, go upstairs, go into the bathroom, get my toothbrush, get my toothpaste, put it on, brush my teeth, spit, rinse it out, and then leave the bathroom. So sometimes what you perceive as a simple instruction is actually quite a complicated one. You may need to break it down one step at a time. So for example, walk upstairs, go to the bathroom, get your toothbrush, get your toothpaste. But each child is different, so go at your child's pace. The next thing is, when you give them instruction, give them time to process. We say on average around 10 seconds. Some children can process a lot quicker and other children need a lot longer. So really understand what the processing speed for your child looks like. And if you need to repeat it because I don't really fully understand, then use the exact same words. So for example, if you add an extra few more words into it, to them it's like a whole new instruction and they have to start again processing. But if you use the same language and the same exact words, they may be like, oh, hang on a minute, this is what you want to do because I've got the first half of the first time you said it and the second half the second time you said it. And then again, reward them for following through. Say them well done. Say like I'm proud of you. Give them a high five. Whatever it takes for your child to feel like actually someone's acknowledged that I've done something today. Because sometimes with our children with neurodiversity, people forget about how hard it is for them to do the little steps in life. So for example, like it may be like they should have been rewarded for sitting down for 5 minutes. They may not have done their work, but they sat down, which is a huge thing for them, and that should be celebrated. Because sometimes we focus on actually they never did the work, but actually all the mini steps they got into just sit at the table needs to be celebrated to help improve their self-esteem. So remember, just always give them rewards, verbal praise when they actually just do something, because that naturally helps to build up their self-esteem. Another strategy is for transitions. So for example, if I was watching TV, especially my favourite programme, and then you ask me, I've been told, go and wash up. I am not going to really leave my favourite programme to wash up because it's a non-preferred activity. I'm going to do every delay technique I possibly can think of to be able to watch more of my TV programmes. It could be like, I'll do it in a minute, I'll do it afterwards, this, and everything will just get, I'll forget about the washing up because I'll then go off and do something else that's preferred. But if somebody said, when I'm watching my favourite TV programme, Steph, do you want a hot chocolate? And I'm like, yes. And like, oh, I've left it on the side in the kitchen. And then I walk into the kitchen because I'm like, oh, I want my hot chocolate. I may drink the hot chocolate and then see my washing up and I'm like, oh, I'll just quickly do that because something's taken me away from my preferred activity that's just as desirable but very quick, likeable, that has a clear beginning and end, that leads me into doing something non-preferred. So just take an example out of your child. So a really preferred activity, for example, is the iPad, and you want them to come off the iPad. So you say to them, actually, here's a sweet, or do you want to listen to 2 songs off my phone, and or play some Babble? So quick, likable activity that has a clear beginning and the end. And once it's finished, you can say, okay, now it's time to brush your teeth, and then we'll do a preferred activity like reading a story. So again, try and think and use that. I'm not saying it's always going to be 100% successful, but you're increasing the likelihood of chance of success and reducing the likelihood of aggressive behaviours being displayed. So another strategy, and what I think is the most important strategy, is take time out for yourself, because if we don't, we're just going to get burnt out, and then we're not going to be in the right place to support our child. So remember what they say on the airplanes: put your own face masks on first before you support your child, because they know that if you don't, you can't help your child put their face masks on. So again, by taking time out, by having that bubble bath, by going out for that quick walk, or playing a mindless game on your phone, helps you just to regroup and recover, and to actually give you the increased likelihood of you being able to reflect on what's happened during the day, and help you to stay calm when an episode of challenging behaviours occur, and you can be the helping hand for your child. And it also helps you to hear other people's perspective, whether that's professionals or other parents in similar situation, or other services. You'll be able to be in a better position to say, actually, I think that advice could help my child, but I just need to tweak it to make sure it encourages their skill sets. And finally, another really important strategy is celebrating the success, because throughout, loads of people will have said to me, this is not a sprint, this is a marathon. And actually, throughout your journey, you need to be able to have time out to celebrate the success. So it could be that actually the success of that day could be, do you know something? It only took me an hour to get out into the car to that place today, because in the past it's taken 2 or 3 hours, or you haven't been able to leave the house. So again, even though you feel like, oh, we've still got a long way to go in this journey, celebrating the small steps with your child will help them to build up on that positivity, and helps you to be able to continue in your marathon, and to interact with different people in your journey to help you to get to the next water station and things like that. So again, remember, life is a journey, especially with your young person, and take the time out each day to reflect on the small wins you may have had. I just would like to say thank you for listening, and I hope this has been helpful. Thank you.